to that big gag. Yeah! Alright, what's going on? It's your boy Kloth. I'm back with another video, man. Look for my stars where I am simply not going nowhere. Look! I don't know what that was supposed to be. Alright, so first thing first, I just want to say thank you for everyone that watched my recent pickup video. I got a lot of love on that recent pickup video, but I'm not gonna waste no time to my motherfucking intro. Now again, Kloth Talk is just where I talk about the trending topics in sneakers and fashion. I bring people on who have those same passions. One housekeeping, that's it. We gonna get to the video, just one housekeeping note real quick. I am currently at 2.5K subscribers on YouTube. I would love to get to 3K by the end of the summer. So if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, please do consider subscribing. That's the freest thing you can do. I don't know why people be so stingy with that. Like, liking the video helps the algorithm. Commenting on the video helps the algorithm. Also, subscribing helps the algorithm. So help a brother out. 3K by the end of the summer, that would be amazing. I drop weekly content on YouTube talking about fashion and sneakers and just some other things as well. But I am considering even upping the weekly. But I gotta see about that first. Now, with that all being said, let's just jump into this first article. Now, you know it's real when it's not even a hypebeast article. Everlane, SHEIN, and the myth of sustainable fashion. This is amazing. Now, I feel like I have to give just a little bit of context on why I'm laughing, why I find this ironic, why I'm smiling like this. So bear with me real quick. I graduated college December 2019. And when I graduated, in the in-between periods of me trying to find like my big job after graduating college, I worked at the Valencia Street location for Everlane. So like, that's their like flagship one. That's the one that's down the street from their headquarters. And when I worked at the store, people from headquarters would come in. Even the founder, I think his name is Michael, he would come in from time to time. So I've had the, the opportunity to meet some of the people from HQ and the founder of this company. So again, if you're not familiar with this brand, their whole ethos is reduce, reuse, recycle. That's the 3-word rule. Shout out to Barney Waters. That's the 3-word rule. If I could break down what the ethos of Everlane was, is reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, they want to reduce the carbon footprint. They want to reuse things that they've already used for other, manufacturing pieces, recycled, fabrics and all that. And they want to do it in the most ethical way possible. So again, if you're not familiar with Everlane, that's kind of like their whole spiel. That's kind of how they built their following. That's how they built, this brand. They're going to change the world because fast fashion is killing the earth. So in my time working there, if you worked in the morning, we'll do these little powwows in the back where we'll talk about where people are stationed on the floor, what new product just came in and how we're changing the world. So like, a lot of conversation would be like, we're using this and this is reducing CO2 emissions and like everything we're doing is changing the world. And we want you to know and communicate to the customers how what Everlane is doing is so much better than what these other companies are doing because they're doing it unethically. They're, filling up landfills and we're not about that because we're going to change the earth together. Like, truthfully, that wasn't word for word what they would say, but like it was something to that effect about how this company is going to push us forward in a more green way, how what we're doing is so much better than what other companies are doing, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. So you can see why after working for this company for 3 years and having that drilled into my head over and over during these corporate meetings, during like all these things, how this is so fucking ironic. So ironic. It's so ironic. Like, the joke couldn't have written itself any better. The fact that SHEIN, the powerhouse, that's the big kahuna when it comes to, I would say SHEIN and Fashion Nova. SHEIN, Fashion Nova, big kahunas in this fast fashion thing. Let's throw, brands like, and Zara's kind of trying to change their thing around. They got the little Benito thing. They got a little other, they have other things going on. They've kind of like elevated just a little bit, H&M, and all these other fast fashion brands who are, can be the main culprits for why, there's so much waste within the fashion industry. Obviously there's other people. I'm not just placing the whole blame on them. But again, it's so ironic because I worked for this company for 3 years and they would tell us day in, day out how we're changing the world, and they got acquired by SHEIN. they got acquired by the company that is literally the antithesis to what Everlane stood for. It's like, and like truthfully, I liked a lot of the people that worked at Everlane. I consider some of the people that I worked with, because I worked like in the back of house, so I was unboxing packages, sorting things, making sure inventory is right, doing web orders and all that. Like, I liked a lot of the people that worked there. They were solid as folk. Like, some of these people I still probably message to this day. Some of them people were some of the worst people I've ever worked with in my entire life. And I've worked in many different fields when it comes to retail. I've worked at Dillard's, I worked at Macy's, I worked at Steve Madden, I worked at Paxson, I've worked at Everlane, I've worked at so many retail spaces. I would consider Everlane one of those places that was probably one of the worst to work for, just because like these people truly felt like they were like, it's like a mental thing, bro. They felt like they were above other people because they were like, what we're doing is so much better than what everybody else is doing. So you need to hold us to a higher regard because we're bettering the planet for your future fucking kids. No, you aren't. It's all about money, bro. It's all about money. It's so ironic. It's crazy. And what adds more insult to injury, I was working at this company at the time. They had this whole, racial thing happen. It was in like the Wall Street Journal. It was in the New York Times about how they were checking, certain demographics, people's bags at their photo shoots. And, there's like a whole thing to the point where like I would walk on Valencia Street on my breaks and I would walk into other shops just talking to people that worked on the street. And they'd be like, oh, like, where do you work? And I said, Everlane. I kid you not, bro. I kid you not. I feel like it was like one of the shops that's in between Nice Kicks and like this food spot. I don't know what shop it was. I walked in there. I said I work for Everlane. They were like, wait, are you okay? They genuinely said, are you okay? That's how it, bro. I'm telling you, bro. And again, I'm not trying to paint them as the worst of the worst companies that ever, like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they've had some scandals now. I'm not gonna lie. They've had some scandals. So again, when I saw this article, I was like, my genuine reaction, because I saw it a couple of weeks ago, I'm just now talking about it, but like my genuine reaction, I was like, bro, there's no way this just happened. Like, it's just wild to me. It's just crazy to me. Again, I worked there for 3 years. I worked in the Valencia Street location, and I also worked in the Austin location. Like, the feeling of working there, I can't even like, but anybody that has worked for this company knows. If you work for this company, I've seen entire management leave. Like, I've seen 5 people exit this company at one time just because like, it was like an ego thing working there, bro. It was a power trip. So again, I just find this ironic. I found this very ironic. And at one point you have to start thinking now, and I'm not saying this is the case, but it makes me think when I was working there, like, they were trying to drill in this, whole reducing CO2 emissions, we're reusing fabrics and like, trying to limit our waste. It makes me almost think like, were they even doing that to begin with? Again, I'm not saying this to like call them out and say they weren't doing it. I'm just saying when something like this happens, it makes me wonder if this was the whole goal all along. Like, I think it got acquired for like 100 million, but at one time this company was like a valued at like, 700, I want to say. I can't remember. I remember reading articles and I looked up certain things about it. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I believe it was like 700 million at one point. It was like valued at, and they bought it for 100 million to SHEIN, which I understand SHEIN is trying to get more into like, international markets, kind of seen as like, I don't know exactly where. I'm not going to cast any dispersions. They're trying to expand their, horizon across different international markets. So for them, this is great, because if they continue to try to do this and try to reduce their carbon footprint, try to reduce waste, I think this could be great for SHEIN. But just knowing SHEIN and just knowing how other fast fashion brands work, they only care about bottom line. Like, if a t-shirt for them costs $1 to make, and then they go to Everlane and it costs them $2.50, $3 to make, they're gonna be like, yeah, nah, we need to, hey, bro, like, wrap this up, bro. This whole reducing, reusing shit, We need to get down to $1, 99 cents. We need to get to 80 cents a shirt to maximize profit, which I feel like in the next 5 years, they might change the name of that company completely. I doubt they keep it Everlane forever, because I've seen the backlash, people calling out Everlane, people calling out, SHEIN for doing this. And like, I feel like in the next 5 years, they're going to change the name of that company. They're still going to have these, the overall ecosystem that this brand had, but they're going to change the name because you can't associate that name any longer if you're going to start doing things such as, contributing to, fast fashion, contributing to more waste, contributing to increasing your carbon footprint, just because like that's what the brand stood for. Like, we're going against everything they stood for. So we might as well just change the name for it. That's it. I mean, I went on a whole rant. I have more to say about this just because like I worked here for 3 years. And for 3 years, I've had people in management and higher up try to tell me, oh, we're doing so much greater than this. And like what we're doing is going to better the world. And like people genuinely believe that. So I think the hate that they're getting is very warranted, because you sold this company for $100 million to a fast fashion brand, which if SHEIN keeps up and upholds this brand, congrats to them. I respect that. I know SHEIN. I know the brand. I'm familiar. I know that company. I don't think they're doing that. So if you are familiar with Everlane, I do want to know your thoughts and opinions on this. Again, this is very ironic. This is the most ironic news I've read when it comes to fashion in a very long time. Very ironic. But let's get into that next article. All right, so this article title reads, Travis Scott Air Jordan 1 Low OG SP, the sale shy pink pack dropped this month. Before I actually give my thoughts and opinions on these sneakers, let me just say this first. Just because I don't like a sneaker and the general consensus is a lot of people like these sneakers does not change the narrative about these sneakers. Cool. I also understand there are a lot of people who don't care about sneakers as much as I may care about sneakers. That's cool too. I also understand there are people like once they find that one sneaker that they really like, they want that same sneaker and fit the other colorways. That's cool too. So with that all being said, this shit gotta stop. It has to stop somewhere. It has to stop somewhere. There's nobody that can tell me right now that those early pairs, the brown pairs of the Travis Scott high tops, the low tops, even the fragment ones, you cannot tell me you would trade those over what these current ones are. Again, I understand people just want something in every single colorway, but when it comes to people feeling brand fatigue, collab fatigue, I feel like there's a lot of that being associated with these Travises, bro. And then we have, I didn't even know people were still doing this. Like, it's not about the dude in the picture. It's more about the action. Like, people are still doing this and making profit off of it. Like, I get it's the Travis Scott ones, but even Travis Scott hasn't released music and hasn't done anything to warrant this. No. And again, I know people personally that went after these. Like, I know people that try to get me to enter raffles for them. So like, I know people really wanted these, but there's no way that we think we can still get 10 more iterations of this and it's still dope or fire. Like, I don't, this is one of those things where like, I feel like I'm becoming old, or like my thought process is old, because there has to be a cutoff with a collab, bro. It has to be. At this point, just flip the swoosh back and have it be a Travis collab one. That would be different and new. Just flip the swoosh back. Be like, Travis Scott undoes the reverse and he has a new colorway. I would be like, okay, that's interesting. But like, I'm just over that. I'm so over that. This run with the low top Jordan 1s may be, when it's all said and done, when Travis Scott decides to take his last, I don't know what the contract is, but when he takes his last pair of low top Jordan 1s, this may be the worst run of a sneaker collab I've ever seen. Now I know, bro, that's a bold thing to say, but from the high of the Jordan 1 reverse swoosh, the highs of the highs for them, to the most recent, I can't even like fathom like the reason that they would do this. There are other silhouettes you can do. Or, you know, I know he's done other silhouettes, but like, bro, I'm just so tired of seeing it. And truthfully, bro, I've had to stop caring when I give my opinions on things because there's a bunch of people having trash takes online. There are a bunch of people having takes that I'm like, oh, okay. I'm just one of the people. I'm just going to be one of those people to y'all. So if you really like this, I'm just going to be one of those people to you that's like, oh yeah, that's a trash take, bro. You need to get your shit together. You rock K-Swiss, nigga. Like, I get it, bro. There's always going to be a villain in some story. And I'm just going to be the villain here when it comes to the whole Travis Scott thing. I'm going to be the villain. Fine. I'll take that. Cool. And I'm not saying he hasn't put out good stuff. I'm just saying this collab is running too fucking long. It's running too long. It's getting tired. It's getting played out. And I don't want to see it anymore. And just to use another example, Vans. I'm looking at you. Now, y'all been on my watch list. I done picked up some Vans. I'm loving what y'all doing. But y'all also are starting to run the risk of running something into the ground. Luckily for y'all, it's not a collab sneaker. It's actually just a part of y'all line of sneakers that y'all are dropping. Cool. But that whole Chanel bag inspired Vans, then y'all did another one, and then y'all did another one, and then y'all did 3 more. You're running the risk of it becoming a gag sneaker. Similar to like the New Balance, what was it called? The 550s, how those ALD ones, fire. Even I got a pair of those. Everybody wanted those. Then it got another collab, and then another collab. Then they just did 60,000 other colorways. And now I don't even know if you can buy those anywhere at the moment. I used to see those in real time. That's my gauge for how hype a sneaker is. Like, you know, for like the, you know, Adidas Samba, like for example, that was taken off in like 2024. Like when I would go outside and interact with people in the real world, I was seeing a bunch of Sambas. So I knew the hype was there. The 550s, I knew the hype was there because every 10th person I saw, somebody was rocking the 550s. Cool. I haven't really seen too many people rock the Chanel bag inspired Vans. Only on Instagram, mostly. But y'all starting to do other colorways. Y'all have dropped since then. Y'all have dropped multiple different colorways. You're running the risk of that becoming a gag shoe at this point. And again, those are always going to be in high regard, but the other ones are going to diminish that. Like, I don't know how to really explain that, but if even the designer that designed those ones, even if he came out and said on his story, just for transparency, these are the only ones that I did, because I feel like this was even him taking acknowledgement to the fact that they're gonna keep running with this whole scheme. Like, the designer noticed it too. That's why he even came out and said something. So again, that's just me. Again, I know people wanted these. I know people still doing this because I saw it on social media. He was getting cooked in his comments too. I know people like these. So I'm not saying, you know, you shouldn't like these because I don't like these. You should like whatever you like. I'm just saying it does get to a point where like I get exhausted looking at the same thing coming out over and over and over. And then somehow when we get to the end of the year and we go to Complex and then these are going to be in the top 10. How? How are these in the top 10? For who? Who's doing the list? Paid advertisement. Yes. But let's get into that next article. Vans give the premium authentic 44 EXT a World Cup moment with the Copa Racing Red. Well, we're gonna have this conversation maybe by the end of this year. Once it's all said and done, once we've seen all the collabs, once we've seen all the colorways, once we've seen, you know, everything. The end of this year, if Vans is not in the conversation for best sneakers or like innovation with their sneakers this year, I know it's cap. It gotta be cap. I haven't seen this much conversation revolving around Vans sneakers in almost 10 years, gang. Like, we got the Satoshis. Obviously, we got the Greg Bettys. Obviously, these are just a part of their mainline thing. Like, they have been putting in the work, bro, and haven't even been boastful about it. Like, I'm not even, like, paid ads and like, you know, really gifting a bunch of people, or even like doing what these other brands are doing. They are very quietly dropping some of the best sneakers I've seen this year so far. Like, and again, I know there's a lot of heat out there. I'm just saying they're in the conversation. They are deserved in the conversation. I would say even pushing out, let's say Solomon, let's push out Puma. I'm pulling up Vans, and that's under like New Balance and, you know, Jordan Brand, Nike, Adidas, like, you know, those, the ones that sit at the top. Like, Vans is slowly creeping its way into people's dailies. People who never even thought about owning a pair of Vans are buying Vans, and they're buying them by the 2s, 3s, and the 4s. They're not just buying one. They're buying them by the 2s, 3s, and the 4, and we're only in the month of May. I can only imagine what else they have in their bag for this year. So this is what I like. So I know I already said something about the whole vintage looking ones and like how they're kind of running that into like the ground. They're doing something like this, which I feel like is very different to them, very unique. Like, it's like they're being a little bit more risky with the designs, you know, being a little bit more innovative with their designs. And like, it looks good. These look good, honestly. These look really, really good. I would actually buy these, especially as we're moving into summer and as we're moving into like, you know, not as, you know, bulky shoes and, you know, not, you know, super layered and all that. Like, we're going to very, you know, basic tees, shorts, and shoes. I feel like these add a certain flair to an outfit. So like, I'm really happy with these. This is what I want from Vans. Don't keep trying to recreate something that, you know, obviously got y'all a lot of buzz when it comes into like the sneaker culture. Like, don't always try to recreate that. Be innovative, do something different, add something and, you know, different elements and all that. Like, truthfully, this is what I like to see. Keep doing this. And then once this is kind of running this course, know when to switch that thing and go to that next thing. Because I feel like, and I'll give Vans credit. Although I've already said what I said about the vintage looking ones, you know, they had the half cap. Can we revisit the half cap with the Vibram sole and get that some more love and attention? Can we do a little bit more with that? And like, what else can we do and change to keep the innovation with Off the Wall and Vans pushing forward? That's what I'm all for. I love the fact that there's not just one sneaker company, completely in capturing the entire sneaker market. Because for a long time it was Jordan, for a long time it was Adidas. Now I like Vans being in the conversation. I like Asics and Pumas being in the conversation. I like Reebok being in the conversation. Hell, Reebok just had those, I think they call it the DMX ones. I think that is Reebok. So Brainchild, those are gas. I love the conversation is more about all of the brands versus just these few. So again, Vans, I'm loving these. I like these. I definitely probably would get a pair, honestly, but I want to see some other colorways just quickly. I don't want to have like 20 other options. I want to have maybe, again, 7 to 8 solid colorways. That's all you need. I would like to see a contrast stitching one. I think that would do these some justice, but that's just me. But with that being said, that is going to wrap up episode 56 of Kloth Talk. We are close to 60. We close to 100 too. I'm trying to reach 3K by the end of the summer. So if you're watching this video and you made it this far in this video, at this point, you owe me a sub. You know what I mean? You owe me a sub. You owe me a like. You know what I mean? You owe me a comment. You know what I mean? Man. But without further ado, like I always do, I will catch y'all in that next one. Gazoinks.
Love the way you work it. Ay. I love the way you work it for me.